fans? Once again, it's the Horror Miser Monty G. Yes, looks like I missed some tag videos because my good friend Sean Erschen from the Horror Corner created a great tag. It's the ultimate Dracula tag. So you know I had to do this one. So here is the ultimate Dracula tag. Now, mostly everyone knows one of my favorite supernatural creatures are vampires, and one of my favorite horror creatures, especially from the Universal Horror Monsters, is Dracula. Now, I love Bela Lugosi's version of Dracula, of course, my all-time favorite, the late, great Christopher Lee as Count Dracula in the Hammer Dracula series, and also Bram Stoker's Dracula with Francis Ford Coppola. I thought Gary Oldman did a great job of it. There's a version where Louis Jordan played Dracula. We have Jack Palance played Dracula. There's a whole bunch of guys that played the great Count Dracula. And Sean created this great tag, so of course I had to do it. Now, there are 12 questions in this tag, and let's go on ahead with question number 1. What is your favorite Dracula movie of all time? That's a pretty tough one because I do have 2 favorites. Obviously, Universal's Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, and of course, one of my favorite in the Hammer horror series, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. And you'll find out why, because that's going to be an answer to a lot of these questions, the reason why I love that particular version of Dracula. But obviously, you got to go with their favorite, because it's my favorite of the Universal monsters, and that is Dracula starring Bela Lugosi. I mean, it's the best one. It's the classic. Almost everything regarding the Count plays off of this movie. So, obviously, Dracula, Universal monster. Now, question number 2. Who was the best actor to portray his nemesis, Van Helsing? Now, there are several people who have portrayed his nemesis, but none better than Peter Cushing. Yes, Peter Cushing. Him and Christopher Lee used to get it on together. I thought he brought the best in Dracula, and Dracula brought the best of him. There's a great scene at the end in the horror of Dracula where we see Dracula and Van Helsing go up against each other, and you can't get a better performance of Van Helsing than Peter Cushing. Question number 3: who is the best actor to portray the Count Dracula? Now, this was a tough question. As much as I love Christopher Lee and his portrayals of Count Dracula, and I truly love him to death, you really cannot ignore what Bela Lugosi did for playing Count Dracula in the original Dracula film. I think it was 1939 when the movie came out. If I'm mistaken, let me know in the comment section below. It was Bela Lugosi's voice, his posture, his acting, his voice, his reflection, his image, his emotions, how he emoted on the camera. All that comes into play, and without that, there's no telling what type of a character we would have with Dracula, or it would not be as famous as he is today without the performance of Bela Lugosi. So you got to give Bela Lugosi's props for his portrayal of the Count. Question number 4: what is your favorite weapon against Dracula? Now, of course, there's lots of weapons you can use against the Count. Obviously, you have the crucifix, you have the wood stake, you have running water, you have holy water, you have silver bullets. There are plenty of ways to kill a vampire or to kill a Dracula, but my favorite of all time is the crucifix. I mean, you can't get any better weapon in Dracula, of course, which I probably might mention in one of the questions in here. It's a crucifix that always kills Dracula in most of these pictures, in most of these films, and 2 in particular that killed the Count. And one was a great scene, and another one was another great scene in Horror Dracula where Peter Cushing, that I just mentioned earlier before, used the cross, or the image of the cross, to kill the Count. Of course, daylight got to him too, but yeah. But obviously, the crucifix is the best weapon to use against Dracula. Question number 5: what is the worst Dracula film of all time? Now, there's plenty. We have Dracula's Dog. I believe there was Dracula 2000. We have some other bad Dracula movies, but I believe the worst of all kind, and I have to agree with Sean on this one, is Dracula versus Frankenstein. It was a terrible film. From what I understand, it looks like the director obviously didn't know what he was doing. He decided 1 minute to add Dracula into the mix and got some guy, I think it was Robert Engle, to play the Count because thought he looked it. But when you look at the film, if you haven't seen it before, he looks more like a rock star than he does like the Count. It's a terrible film. It's a terrible. I don't even talk about it no more. It was silly at the end because they really don't fight each other at the end, and the match and the battle doesn't even amount to anything. Because I did see it. I'd rather see Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. Now that's a better fight than this crap. This garbage. So yes, the worst Dracula film of all time is Dracula versus Frankenstein. No, number 6 and actually number 7 actually will go together. Number 6 is what is your favorite scene in a Dracula film, and number 7 is what is your best line from Dracula in film history. Sean's gonna love this one, but he probably knows what I'm going to say. One of my favorite scenes in a Dracula film and one of my favorite lines from a Dracula film history obviously comes from the great late Christopher Lee, and Dracula has risen from the grave, because that's one of the reasons why I love this one. Dracula is about to enter his castle with the Monsignor's niece, but unfortunately there's a cross on his castle. He cannot enter it, so he literally just throws his niece on the ground and says, "Get that thing out of my sight!" It cracks me up. It's only one of my favorite scenes, and a Dracula film is one of the best lines. Now, of course, there's some other good lines. Bela Lugosi and actually Gary Oldman, when they recite the line, "Listen to them, the children of the night. Such sweet music they make, no?" That's a good line, but unfortunately it does not top "Get that thing out of my sight!" So that's my answer for question 6 and 7. Question number 8, what is the best parody or comedy featuring Dracula? Now, there's a couple of good ones. You got Leslie Nielsen and Dracula, Dead and Loving It. There's some other horror comedies that features the Count. But I believe the best one is George Hamilton. Like I said, it's George Hamilton's Love at First Bite. I actually saw the movie. It's a great comedy. You got Dracula doing disco dancing, which I thought was fine. George Hamilton, he's pretty good in it as well. I thought it was a great comedy. Yeah, so definitely the best comedy or parody featuring Dracula is Love at First Bite. Question number 9. Which film had the worst representation of Dracula on screen? That's going to have to be Van Helsing. Richard Roxburgh, I believe I pronounced his name right, was here to play the Count, and I don't know what Stephen Sommers and his writing team were doing when they came up with this, supposedly trying to bring back all the Universal monsters into one film, with this film with Van Helsing, because he was successful in doing it with his remake of The Mummy in 1999, so they hired him to try to do it with bringing back Dracula, Frankenstein. They didn't have the Creature in the Black Lagoon, but they had the werewolf, and they actually had Van Helsing, which Hugh Jackman played in the role. I guess they were trying to create a franchise with Van Helsing taking on a whole bunch of supernatural creatures. They even threw in Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde into the mix as well. But I don't know what they were doing, but his portrayal of Dracula was horrible. It wasn't even threatening. He looked like some type of elegant guess and no threat whatsoever, and just totally miscast. I don't know if it's Richard Roxburgh's fault or the writer's fault or both, but it was just a terrible portrayal. Turned out to be a big CGI mess at the end. At the end, the picture is terrible. I wouldn't even want to talk about it anymore because that's so bad it was. So yes, the worst representation of Dracula on screen was Richard Roxburgh and Van Helsing. Question number 10: which film had the best death of Dracula? And hence, once again, I will go back to Dracula has risen from the grave. Yes, even Sean mentioned this before because it's still funny. Because by the time that the Monsieur's niece actually does get rid of the cross and drops onto the ground, it actually sticks up into the air. And you know that's foreshadowing foreshadowing because it's stuck right there. So you know it's going to play a part in his death. So, of course, by the time that Dracula falls down after fighting with Denise's boyfriend, he lands right onto the cross. You can't even get it. It's so funny. I wish I could show it, but I can't find the video of it because it's so funny. Funny to me. So he can't. And then the weak priest, he finally prays because in this particular version you have to pray in order for Dracula to die, and he eventually turns to dust. But it was such a great scene. I mean, there are other great deaths of Dracula, like I think the horror Dracula. I mentioned that before. That has actually great death of Dracula in it. But yeah, definitely the best death scene is Dracula has risen from the grave. Question number 11. What is the most underrated Dracula film? Now, there's some Dracula films that have gone unnoticed. I think 1979's Dracula starring Frank Langella. I think that goes a bit unrated. There's some other vampire Dracula. I think 2000 or 3000. I forget which one. That goes a bit unnoticed before, but I'm going to go against the grain like I always do and actually mention Dracula Untold. Now, Dracula Untold came out in 2014. It was actually supposed to be the movie that starts Universal's Dark Universe. That was supposed to be the starting point, but the film did not perform as well as they did, so they decided not to use that particular version to start their so-called Dark Universe. Now, Luke Evans, I give him credit. He really did try to do a good job in portraying Dracula. Before he became the Count Dracula, he was, because everyone knows Count Dracula's history is tied to a guy named Lord Vlad Tepes. He was a Hungarian warlord at the time, fighting against the monks back I think it's 13th, 14th century. If I'm wrong, leave in the comment section below. And in this particular one, it shows him how he actually became a vampire. And of course, you know, it was a good attempt. It was certainly better than Tom Cruise's crap, The Mummy. So I will give them credit for at least trying to do something with Dracula and trying to create a universe. But again, you know, it just didn't make the money. It was not a good film overall. But I'll give them credit for at least trying to do something different. And the last question is thoughts on Francis Ford. Let's try that again. Question 12. Thoughts on Francis Ford Coppola's version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Is the solid, faithful adaptation or overblown Hollywood nonsense? Just like Sean said, it's a combination of both. It's elegant. It's nice. You gotta love Gary Oldman's performance as Count Dracula, a very conflicted man who fought for the church, and when his love Elizabeth killed herself, he renounced his love for God and decided to use all the forces of darkness against God. It was a heartbroken tale. Really wasn't an evil character. He just became evil because, you know, he lost the love of his life. And when he does have a second chance, when he believes that Nina is the reincarnation of Elizabeth, you know, he wants him for himself. So he's a very conflicted character here. So you got to give them credit for doing that particular aspect of Bram Stoker's novel. Unfortunately, I thought Keanu Reeves was miscast as Jonathan Harker with his fake British accent. I thought he did not do a good job. I did love the special effects. I love the practical effects that they used in this film. This is very bloody. It's very bloody. I love the actress who played Mina, who played Lucy, Mina's girlfriend in the picture, or her best friend in the picture right there. So yeah, it's a solid, faithful adaptation to the to Bram Stoker's novel, but it does have some overblown Hollywood nonsense in it because I just think Keanu Reeves was miscast as Jonathan Harker. I think they could have gotten a better actor to play Jonathan Harker because he's so wooden and stiff, and you know, it just doesn't do the right emotions for that type of character. But yeah, it gets a combination of both. So those are the 12 questions for the Ultimate Dracula tag. At this point, the tag I'm supposed to tag other people in the to do this tag. Now, Sean did tag some other people that I normally tag, but I'm going to tag Jen and Christian from Jen's Reviews from the Greg. I'm going to tag my good friend Jennifer from the Horror. I'd like to see you do a tag video. And let's see who else I can tag. Maybe Bronco Juggalo Talks Movies. Yeah, Brad, time for you to do a tag. And anybody else, if you're watching this video, consider yourself tagged by the Horror Miser Monty G. Just make sure that you give Sean from the Horror Corner credit, because this is his tag. But once again, that's my video for the day, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And once again, this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. That way you can come and enjoy the horror experience with me, the Horror Miser Monty G. And as always, all my social media links will be down in the description box below as well. Once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember, horror rules. Hey there, take us home. We're out.
We have such sights to show you.